Well, we're just 43 days until kick-off. This rift between the NRL and the Players Association appears to be growing wider. A number of clubs, the Sharks, Dragons and Knights, have partaken in media boycotts. Bronco Kurt Capel yesterday refused to rule out strike action should the two parties be unable to successfully negotiate a collective bargaining agreement. It's certainly a sticking point that we think threatens to derail the start of the season. Wade Graham is the Sharks legend and a spokesperson for the RLPA, and he's very kindly given us some of his time this morning. Wade, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. How you going?
Going very well. Just looking at some of the texts, Wade, that have come in to the program this morning. Look, understandably, fans get frustrated by the talk of boycotts and strike action. So what are the sticking points for the players at the moment, Wade? What is it that you are seeking that is so important that boycotts are on the agenda?
Well, overall, it's just probably, a lack of progress in the terms and conditions, like the employment terms and conditions throughout the term of the CBA and things around. I know it's frustrating for fans and it's frustrating for players as well about this narrative. It's the pay dispute. It's all about the money. When in reality, it's much broader than that. It's like I said, it's about their employment conditions that players, women and men, are locked into over a 5-year CBA term, and there's a lot of detail and a lot of responsibilities and obligations that players face, to get the job done. And unfortunately, we just haven't progressed in some of these areas. In fact, with the latest proposal, we've gone backwards if you compare it to previous CBAs.
Wade, if you had to pinpoint one or two key elements, what stands out for the players that they're showing the most anguish over?
At this stage, probably for starters, it's not a general revenue share. We're trying to work in the past players space as well, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to make any progress with past player support. I think, in areas the NRL increases more control and power with the obligations they have put on players in the latest proposal, and again, just agreement rights. So you sort of enter the term under a set of conditions, and if there's no agreement rights in there with players, if the NRL want to change some of those conditions, during the term. So just protections around that, trying to get those into the CBA. That if there was to be changes to players' obligations or employment conditions that need to be agreed upon with the players or the RLPA.
If a collective bargaining agreement can't be reached, is the start of the season under threat?
I don't think so. The games are there. The players are getting ready. We're all training at our clubs, individual clubs respectively, to prepare for another season in the NRL. That's quite drastic to think games would be under threat at this stage. I think over the last week, it's certainly caused enough waves and ripples effects to show the NRL and the players, we're quite a distance apart still, and we need to get back in the room and get back to the table and try and iron out these creases because, we do understand it hurts everyone, but it's important that we hold the line and, the decision's been made by the players as a collective. This is the path, we want to stand on, and this is the line we want to fight for. So, this is where we're at.
Christian Welch intimated, we had him on last week, and he intimated that, there was some talk around final series last year, the World Cup, but the players didn't want to do anything yet. So this is the first step now in terms of a boycott. You said the games aren't under threat. What could the players do next? There's talk around the season launch. There's other promotional activities between now and kickoff. What's next for the players if they can't get an agreement?
Yeah, well, to be fair, the players have been, there's no doubt it's been a long process. How it started towards the back end of last year, the lack of progress, and the RLPA and actually Nudo's done a really good job just holding the players back because they've wanted to be more active. They wanted to be sort of getting off the bench and, being a bit more proactive in the negotiations. But, the RLPA continually fought just for everyone to be patient and stay calm. They were confident they'd get in the room with the NRL and get the deal done. But it hasn't come, to fruition that way. So now, the players have sort of collectively said they've had enough and they want to start. They don't feel comfortable, meeting certain obligations that the NRL laid out for us. So at this time of year, it's obviously a lot of content for the start of the season. We had the season launch coming up. There's a lot of, commercial shoots to be done. So all these things are on the table. But, hopefully, because the stand the players have made, we can get back in that room and get the negotiations going again and try and get the CBA to where it needs to be.
Are you confident, Wade, that you can reach a resolution before the season starts?
Well, I'd like to think so. I'm a confident person. I'd like to think, what we're asking for isn't unfair or isn't unreasonable. Like every club CEO that I've spoken to understand our claims. They're supporting their players. There's been no club standing in the way of players' action because they understand the claims of the CBA. So I think with the clubs supporting the players and the players being united, I'm confident we can get back in that room as soon as possible and just, iron out the creases we need to, get the deal done and then just move on and get another great season underway.
You're one of the most experienced players in the game now. Is this the worst you've seen the relationship between the players and the NRL?
Probably, to be honest, probably not. I just think, certainly through COVID, it forced the players to sort of take a great understanding of the game's position and their role in the game. And, it's a competitive environment, right? So it's hard sometimes to take your Cronulla Sharks hat off as Wade Graham and go in and meet other players from other clubs and realise, hang on, we're one playing group here. And COVID sort of forced that upon everyone, having to go into bubbles and make certain sacrifices for not just your own team, for the greater, for every other team out there as well. So through that whole period, I just think, what it's done is just galvanised the playing group, and they sort of, the communication that goes out between everyone's a lot more connected. They understand their role and the responsibility for their game. And if anything, it's just, educated and made the players understand a lot more their position in the game. So it's probably the most united I've ever seen a playing group, that's for sure. And it was sort of forced upon us the last few years of just dealing with what's happened. So I think it's just now the players understand where they are in the game and what they want out of it, and what their expectations are of how they're treated and how they're treating the workforce.
Wade, you said that you had concerns over increased obligations placed on the players. Can you give us an example of what some of those obligations are?
Oh, mate, it's hard to go line by line. Like the CBA is a lot of things. Like one thing would be like a transfer window, which sort of takes away, different aspects of rights. I'm not saying that the current system we have with contracting and player movement is the best system, but certainly something that needs to be looked at. With the NRL and the RLPA working together, and that the way it's proposed at the moment isn't anywhere near that. So there's one example, but to go line by line through the whole thing, it's a pretty deep document. It's all our terms and conditions.
Did you think that the NRL expected you guys to roll over by now?
I'm unsure what they're thinking, to be honest. Like every meeting that I've been in with the NRL, and I've been in quite a few, I feel like they seem to be positive and we seem to be tracking in the right direction and all the right words are said. But then when it comes to a document being sent across, it just never seems to marry up with. And, when we explain that back to, the player delegates and player leaders and, the other, the whole group, when you explain that back, that the words that are being said are different to the documents or the actions being taken, well, that's where the frustration begins to grow. And that's why you've started to see a lot more players become, actively involved.
Lee Hadjipantelis told us on the program yesterday that refusal to partake in these events could be construed as a breach of contract. Has that been made aware to the playing group?
Yeah, it's been made aware. Obviously, we understand some of the risks that go with it. But then again, it just goes to show how, determined the players are. They're willing to take this stand. They feel like, we all feel like what the approach we've taken so far hasn't really got us too far. We haven't progressed. The talks have stalled. Again, the proposal's gone backwards. So the players understand the risk, but they're united in this. It's not just one or two players that have said, I think this is what we should do. It's not the RLPA saying this is what I think we should do. This should come from many voices across the game. So, everyone's sort of united behind it. And like I said, hopefully it doesn't take too long and we can get back in that room and start progressing things, as soon as possible.
Wade, putting your Sharks hat on, mate. You re-signed for another 12 months. How do you? There's been some talk around your role this year. Do you see it changing? Do you expect to start round one?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm floating all over the place at the moment at training. I'm playing in the back row, a bit of middle, even got in the halves a couple of times. So, round one's still a fair distance away. But if we would play tomorrow, I probably wouldn't be in the starting team, to be honest. The way we're training, but there's still plenty of time to go before round one. So we'll just see how we go. Footy's a funny thing. You never want to look too far ahead. But I'm enjoying it as much as I've ever enjoyed it. We've got a great bunch of guys down there. They're a fun crew to go to work with every day and train with. And our staff are, up there with the best, set of staff that I've been a part of. They make they make training fun, and they make it such a good place to come down. I walk in there every day with a smile on my face. So I'm really enjoying it. And whatever happens throughout the season, it just happens, mate. It's the game.
Just a quick one before we let you go, Wade, and we thank you for your time on the program this morning. Of course, Eddie Jones been appointed the new Wallabies coach, and there's talking about raiding the league ranks, and Joey Suolii's name's been floated. And some people have got some interesting suggestions about the league players that may succeed in rugby union. Cam Murray's another one. How do you reckon you would have gone on the 15-man code back in the day, and did you ever consider it?
Oh, I don't know the rules well enough, mate. I'd probably give away too many penalties.
Even the rugby players don't know the rules, Wade.
Yeah, we actually had Eddie come into a couple of sessions last year for a week while he was over here. So I did see he got that coaching role. So I wish him all the best, but he can keep his hands off our Sharkies boys.
Because Summer suggested Sifa Talakai would go okay.
I think he'd go all right in any sport, too.
He would. Wade, thank you so much for your time this morning. And for the sake of the fans and for the game as a whole, we hope that the players and the NRL can get back in the room and find a swift resolution. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Here he is, Wade Graham, on the program this morning.